If you like storytime vibes, hit subscribe and let's dive in together.
When she showed up at my office, trembling like a ghost who'd realized she died by her own hand, I didn't stand up. I didn't even blink. 2 weeks of silence had done what 2 years of begging never could. She was pale, her mascara smudged from sleepless nights, her lips trembling as if trying to summon the version of me that once loved her. But that man was gone. Buried under the ashes, she lit herself. She said, "We need to talk." I almost laughed. 2 weeks ago, she had declared, "From now on, I decide when we spend time together. Stop bothering me." Now she stood in front of me, voice cracking, pretending that the storm she created wasn't still raging in her own chest. I remember the moment her tone changed, the day her voice stopped sounding like love and started sounding like a command. I knew that sound. It was detachment, the kind people use when their heart already belongs elsewhere. But I said nothing, just one word. Okay. That was the last thing I ever said to her. We used to be inseparable. She'd lean against me on cold mornings, whispering how safe she felt in my arms. I believed her. She was the kind of woman who made you forget your instincts, who could make a lie feel like home. You'd see the warning signs, the late night messages, the turned down phone, the sudden perfume that didn't belong to your memories, and still convince yourself love was enough. It started small. She began dressing up for work dinners she never used to attend. Her phone never left her side. Her smile became polite, the kind you give to strangers, not lovers. Then, one night, I saw her reflection in the living room window, her lips pressed against someone else's in a car parked outside. I didn't move. I didn't shout. I just watched. Watched until the car's taillights disappeared down the street. My heart didn't break. It crystallized. That's the difference between heartbreak and clarity. One hurts, the other sharpens. The next morning, I made her breakfast. Pancakes. Just like always. I didn't confront her. I didn't even look at her. But she noticed. She could feel it. That quiet in me that no scream could reach. And that silence scared her more than any anger ever could. That silence, it became my armor. Every morning, I woke before her, brewed coffee, packed her lunch, smiled as if nothing had happened. She mistook it for forgiveness. It wasn't. It was calculation. Because sometimes revenge doesn't begin with fire. It begins with patience. I watched her routine shift. The extra time she spent on her phone before leaving for work. The new perfume that followed her like a ghost I hadn't invited into my home. I didn't question her. I simply started planning. I canceled the joint bank accounts, moved my savings quietly to a private account under my name. She never noticed. She was too busy rehearsing her lies in the mirror. Every night, I'd hear her in the bathroom, whispering to someone over the phone, soft laughter, low tones, like a secret melody. It should have hurt, but instead, I felt powerful. For the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was observing. One night, I followed her. Not physically. I didn't need to. I tracked her location through the shared phone plan. It was easy. She was predictable. A pattern of deceit disguised as overtime. A hotel near the city outskirts. Room 213. I stared at the map glowing on my screen and realized how far she'd gone, and how far I'd come from the man who once begged for her love. The next morning, I placed her favorite mug on the counter. She smiled faintly, perhaps out of guilt. I returned the smile, calm, steady, unreadable. That day, I called a real estate agent and listed the house under my name alone. The down payment, mine. The documents, I'd prepared them months ago, back when I still believed we had a future. Ironic how faith can turn into foresight. Then came the subtle part of my revenge, the art of letting her destroy herself. I stopped checking her phone, stopped asking questions. I gave her full freedom, and she mistook it for indifference. In truth, it was a mirror. I wanted her to look at me and see the man she'd lost interest in, quiet, distant, untouchable, while she sank deeper into the lies she thought she controlled. It worked. Slowly, she began to unravel. She came home later, but not happier. She laughed less, ate less. She caught her own reflection in the mirror one night and didn't recognize the woman staring back. That's the thing about guilt. It ages you faster than time ever could. I didn't need to expose her. I didn't need to shout, I know. My silence became the loudest confession she ever heard. And every time I met her eyes, she flinched because deep down, she knew. She knew I'd seen everything and chosen not to care. It was strange. Watching someone crumble under the weight of their own secrets, she started avoiding mirrors. The confidence that once radiated from her like sunlight now flickered like a dying bulb. Her phone stayed silent longer. The late night calls stopped. Maybe he ghosted her. Maybe she finally realized he wasn't worth losing everything for. Either way, the silence she once demanded became her own punishment. One evening, she came home early. I was in the kitchen, slicing vegetables. The sound of the knife hitting the cutting board echoed through the quiet house. Steady, rhythmic, surgical. She stood there for a while, just watching me. Then, softly, she said, "You've changed." I didn't look up. "No," I said. "You just started seeing me clearly." That night, she tried to act like nothing had happened. She cooked dinner, played music, even laughed at her own jokes. But it all felt hollow, like she was performing for an audience that had already left. Over the next few weeks, she began to cling to me again, asking how my day was, offering to do my laundry, trying to touch me like before. But every gesture felt desperate, mechanical. Love can't grow in the same soil where betrayal took root. I gave her politeness, not affection. I gave her civility, not warmth, and she noticed. The distance between us wasn't measured in space, but in silence. A silence so deep it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. Then one morning, she found the real estate papers, my name alone on the deed. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. You changed everything," she whispered. "I just fixed what was broken," I replied. She didn't argue. She just sat there, staring at the papers, at the evidence of a life she no longer had control over. A week later, she packed a suitcase. No tears, no screaming, just quiet resignation. She said, "I didn't think it would end like this." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I saw the woman behind the lies. Fragile, lost, scared of herself. "It didn't have to," I said. "You made a choice. I just stopped saving you from it." She left that afternoon. No dramatic exit, no goodbye kiss, just the faint click of the door closing behind her, the final note in a song that had been dying for months. That night, the house was silent again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was clean, peaceful, the kind of silence that doesn't ache. It breathes. I poured myself a drink and stared at the empty chair across the table. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. I felt free. Freedom tastes strange at first. The quiet mornings, the untouched pillow beside me, the absence of her perfume on my clothes, all of it felt both empty and liberating. For years, my life had revolved around keeping her happy, maintaining the illusion of us. But when the illusion broke, so did my dependence on it. I started running again, not to escape, but to breathe. Every step on the pavement felt like shedding a layer of the man I used to be, the one who forgave too easily, who mistook loyalty for weakness. I signed up for a photography class, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. Funny how time appears the moment you stop wasting it on people who never valued yours. Work improved too. Without the constant emotional drain, I focused better. My boss noticed. Promotions followed. My pay increased. Suddenly, the same man who once begged for scraps of affection was being invited to lead major projects, to speak at conferences. Meanwhile, she reappeared. Of course she did. They always do. It started with a text. "Hey, can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time before replying with a simple, "About what?" She said she wanted closure, but closure was something she forfeited the day she lied. Still, curiosity got the better of me. We met at a small cafe downtown, the same one where we'd shared countless breakfasts back when forever still felt possible. She looked smaller somehow. The shine in her eyes was gone. replaced with a regret. You look good, she said softly, fingers nervously tracing her coffee cup. I know, I replied. It wasn't arrogance. It was truth. She hesitated. I've made mistakes. I looked at her, calm, steady. No, I said. You made choices. Mistakes are accidents. You knew what you were doing. She bit her lip, tears forming. I thought I wanted something different. I didn't realize what I already had. I smiled faintly. You didn't lose me because you wanted something different. You lost me because you thought I'd always wait. She tried to reach for my hand, but I leaned back. The space between us spoke louder than any argument. I could see the realization in her eyes that I wasn't punishing her anymore. I'd simply moved on. And that was the real revenge. Indifference. As she walked away, I watched her through the cafe window. The woman who once owned every piece of my heart, now reduced to a passing memory. Outside, the sunlight hit the glass, and for a moment, her reflection faded completely. It was poetic, really. The way karma doesn't need a stage. It just needs time. Months passed, the seasons changed, and with them, so did I. The man I saw in the mirror no longer carried bitterness, only calm. The silence that once felt like punishment now felt like peace. People often say closure comes from confrontation, but that's not true. Real closure comes when you no longer need answers. One morning, as I left my apartment, I saw her again, by accident. She was standing across the street, staring at me. Her hair was shorter now, her eyes heavier. She looked tired, not just physically, but in that deep, soul-weary way of people who've spent too long regretting things they can't undo. She tried to smile, but it faltered. You look happy, she said. I am, I replied simply. There was no malice in my tone, no triumph, just truth. And that truth seemed to break her more than any insult ever could. She asked, Do you ever think about us? I paused. Sometimes, I said, but not with pain anymore. Just gratitude for the lesson. Tears filled her eyes. I wish I could start over. I looked at her, calm and detached. We did start over, I said. You started your life, and I started mine. She nodded slowly, as if realizing too late that the story she'd once tried to control no longer belonged to her. She was just a character in a chapter I'd already closed. After she left, I walked to my car, feeling lighter than I had in years. The past didn't haunt me anymore. It had become my foundation, a reminder of who I'd been and who I'd chosen to become. Life began to bloom again. I traveled. I met people who saw me, not as a placeholder for their loneliness, but as someone worth knowing. I learned that love doesn't need to be dramatic to be real. It just needs honesty. Sometimes I still drive past that old house. The curtains are different now, the garden neglected. The new owners probably don't know the story it hides, but I do. And every time I see it, I feel nothing but clarity. Like looking at a scar that no longer hurts. That's what silent revenge truly is. It's not about making someone suffer. It's about becoming untouchable, so peaceful, so whole, that their betrayal no longer defines you. In the end, she lost me quietly, the same way I lost her, not in anger, but in silence. But the difference? My silence rebuilt me. Hers destroyed her.